It was a quiet Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941. The sun had just begun to rise over the Hawaiian Islands. Sailors at Pearl Harbor were waking up slowly, sipping their coffee, joking with friends, and writing letters home. No one knew that within minutes, their peaceful paradise would turn into hell. Far across the Pacific Ocean, hundreds of Japanese aircraft were cutting through the clouds, silent, deadly, and determined. They carried a single mission: to destroy the U.S. Pacific Fleet before America could ever fight back. Japan believed it was time to expand to rule Asia and the Pacific. But one thing stood in their way: the United States of America. So, they made a plan to strike first. As the clock hit 7:55 am, the first wave of Japanese planes screamed down from the sky. Bombs exploded, torpedoes tore through the water, and black smoke rose like mountains of fire. Within seconds, the mighty battleship USS Arizona was ripped apart, sinking with over 1,100 men trapped inside. The attack had begun, and America was caught completely off guard. Sailors rushed out of their bunks barefoot, bleeding, and confused. The sky was filled with chaos. Japanese planes with red suns on their wings dived low, machine guns blazing. Men screamed, ships burned, and the ocean itself turned black with oil and fire. In that moment, the unthinkable had happened. Japan had awakened the sleeping giant, the United States of America. Before the bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, Japan had already been fighting a silent war. Not with guns, but with ambition. In the early 1930s, Japan had transformed from an island nation into a rising empire. It had invaded China, taken control of Manchuria, and was now eyeing the vast resources of Southeast Asia: oil, rubber, and steel. Everything it needed to fuel its growing war machine. But there was one problem. Most of those resources were controlled by Western powers: Britain, the Netherlands, and the United States. When Japan invaded China in 1937, the world watched in horror as cities burned and millions suffered. America, though not yet at war, strongly opposed Japan's aggression. In 1940, the United States, Britain, and the Netherlands began cutting off vital oil and metal supplies to Japan. To Japan, this was an act of war, an attempt to strangle their empire. Without oil, Japan's ships couldn't sail, its planes couldn't fly, and its tanks couldn't move. They had two choices: give up their dreams of domination, or strike back before it was too late. That's when Japanese military leaders, led by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, designed a plan so daring, it shocked even their own people. They would destroy the U.S. Pacific Fleet in one single, surprise attack. Yamamoto himself had studied in America. He knew the country's strength and its pride. He warned his government, saying, "Can run wild for 6 months. After that, I have no expectation of success." But Japan's leaders believed they could win quickly, before America could recover. While diplomats from Japan were still meeting American officials in Washington, pretending to seek peace, Japanese aircraft carriers were already sailing toward Hawaii. 6 carriers, carrying over 350 planes, moved silently across the Pacific, radio silent, hidden by the ocean itself. But here's the twist. The United States had intercepted Japanese secret codes they knew. Japan was planning something. They just didn't know where or when. Some American intelligence officers even warned that Hawaii could be a target. But those warnings were lost in confusion, bureaucracy, and disbelief. No one imagined that Japan would dare attack the United States directly. And so, when the sun rose on December 7th, 1941, America was still asleep. In every sense, the attack on Pearl Harbor wasn't just a military strike. It was the moment that changed the course of history forever. In the next part, we'll dive deep into the minute-by-minute destruction of Pearl Harbor, the chaos, the courage, and the men who fought back against impossible odds. 7:55 a.m., December 7th, 1941. The first Japanese bomb hit Pearl Harbor. In that instant, peace vanished, replaced by chaos, fire, and death. Sailors looked up and saw hundreds of planes diving from the clouds. Red suns painted on their wings. It was the Imperial Japanese Navy. The sky itself seemed to be on fire. Within seconds, the first explosions shook the harbor. The battleship USS Arizona took a direct hit. A massive fireball erupted, and in less than 9 minutes, she sank, taking more than 1,000 men down with her. Nearby, the USS Oklahoma rolled over completely, trapping hundreds of sailors inside. Some banged on the steel hull, hoping someone would hear them, but most never escaped. Smoke covered the entire harbor. Men jumped into the burning water to survive. Oil spread across the surface, turning the ocean black. Fire danced everywhere. Pilots attacked again and again, torpedoes slamming into ships, bombs dropping on airfields, machine guns cutting through everything. American planes tried to take off, but were destroyed before leaving the ground. Amid the destruction, there were moments of incredible courage. Men carried the wounded through flames, some refusing to abandon their stations even as ships sank beneath them. The sound of explosions mixed with shouts, prayers, and the roar of fire. For 90 minutes, hell rolled Pearl Harbor. When it finally ended, more than 2,400 Americans were dead. The Pacific Fleet lay in ruins. But deep inside that smoke and sorrow, something powerful was born. Anger, determination, and a promise that this would never happen again. That day, Japan won a battle, but they had awakened something far greater, the fury of a nation that would soon rise with unimaginable strength. When the smoke finally began to clear over Pearl Harbor, the true horror was revealed. Ships that once stood tall and proud were now broken skeletons of steel. Bodies floated in the water. The air was heavy with the smell of burning oil and metal. Sailors searched desperately for their friends, calling names that would never be answered. Fathers, sons, and brothers all lost in a single morning. The harbor that had been a home was now a grave. In Washington, the news spread like wildfire. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was informed within hours. His face turned pale, but his voice was steady. He knew what this meant. America was now at war. The next day, December 8, 1941, Roosevelt stood before Congress. He spoke only a few lines that would echo through history. Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. As his words filled the room, every heart in America burned with the same fire. There was no more hesitation, no more debate. The United States of America was ready to fight. Factories roared to life. Men lined up to join the military, and women took jobs building planes, ships, and weapons. A sleeping giant had truly awakened. But for Japan, the victory celebration would not last long. They had hoped America would fear them instead. They had made America unstoppable. Voice. From the ashes of Pearl Harbor, a new generation of heroes would rise. The Pacific War had just begun, and the world was about to witness one of the greatest battles in human history. In the next part, we'll journey with the brave men who carried the fight across the ocean into the heart of Japan's empire. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, America changed overnight. The shock turned into fury, and that fury became purpose. Factories worked day and night. Men and women across the nation joined forces not just to defend, but to strike back. Within months, the United States rebuilt its fleet. New aircraft carriers, destroyers, and planes filled the Pacific. The American people had one goal: to end the empire that dared to attack them. But the Pacific Ocean was vast, and Japan's navy was still powerful. They had captured island after island: the Philippines, Guam, Wake Island, Singapore, spreading like fire across the Pacific. Each victory made Japan believe they were unstoppable. But Admiral Yamamoto knew the truth. America was coming. 6 months after Pearl Harbor came the moment that would turn the tide. The Battle of Midway. June 1942, 4 Japanese aircraft carriers sailed toward the small island of Midway, planning another surprise attack. But this time, America was ready. U.S. codebreakers had cracked Japan's secret communication codes. They knew the plan, the time, and even the route. It was the perfect trap. As the Japanese launched their attack, American planes from the carriers Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown struck back. Bombs hit the Japanese carriers one after another. Explosions tore through the decks, flames reaching to the sky. In just a few hours, Japan lost 4 of its best aircraft carriers, the same ones that had attacked Pearl Harbor. It was a devastating blow. Yamamoto's worst fear had come true. The sleeping giant was now wide awake and unstoppable. After Midway, the United States began its long, brutal journey across the Pacific island by island, mile by mile. It was called island hopping. Each battle was harder than the last. Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Japanese soldiers fought to the death, refusing to surrender. The jungles turned into graveyards, the beaches into fields of fire. Thousands of Americans died, but they never stopped advancing. By 1945, the U.S. Navy had surrounded Japan itself. The empire that once dreamed of ruling Asia was now trapped and broken. And yet, Japan still refused to surrender. Even as their cities were bombed and their navy destroyed, their leaders held on to pride. They believed dying with honor was better than surrendering to the enemy. But soon, a new kind of weapon would appear, one that would change the world forever. A weapon born in secret, powerful enough to destroy an entire city in seconds. Its name was the atomic bomb. In the next part, we'll enter the final chapter of the war, the days when fire fell from the sky, and the world saw the true cost of victory.